Ever wonder on how to scale your house flipping and wholesaling business utilizing direct mail? This interview with Greg Helbeck is for you. We talk about scaling and profitability. We talk about sales conversions, how to hire, how to train your staff. Greg Helbeck drops bombs when we're talking about back to the basic marketing. Check it out.
Hey, what is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here from the Real Estate Experts Podcast. Have you ever wondered on how to get bigger spreads on your wholesale and flip deals, or how to appropriately do direct marketing profitably and increase your sales conversion process through the direct mail campaigns? Today, we have a wonderful show for you today. We have Greg Helbeck on the show. Let's roll the intro.
Welcome to Real Estate Experts. Join us to democratize the secrets to real estate for everyone, everywhere. Thank you for being here. Let's see what our experts have to say today.
What is up, Greg? Greg Helbeck from Velocity Home Buyers, wholesaler, East Coast, West Coast, all the coasts, the man, the myth, the legend. Here he is in person. How's it going, brother?
What's going on, bro? How you doing, man? Greetings from the New York City area. It's a nice rainy day out. It's kind of cold. I got my Mets hat on, got my sweatshirt on. I'm ready to crank.
You the energetic crank, not the other crank.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a crank. I can promise you that.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having you on the show today. I just wanted to take some time out and give a little background for you, if you're open to sharing some of that background, and then how you kind of got started, and then where you're at today.
Absolutely. So long story short, I got started in the business in like 2015, 2016. I was a college kid. I had no money. I went to a seminar and they were talking about how to double close properties. So they were talking about basically like buying a house and reselling it and not using any of your money. And I was like, this is interesting. Like, this sounds like something I can definitely do. And I had no money. And they said you didn't need any money. So I believed it, which actually was true. And I went to that seminar and I just remember I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I didn't know before that what I knew I wanted to get rich, to be completely blunt with you, but I didn't know how that was going to happen. And I went out after that seminar and I started marketing and handwriting letters and putting out bandit signs and, cold calling for sale by owners and wasting my time and kind of spinning my wheels. But after like 9 months, I ended up running into a deal, made $1,000 and I had proof of concept. And then I ran into another deal, made like $5,000, proof of concept again. As they would say, I got the shut up check to all the haters. And, since then, man, we've banged out, well over 100 properties. I've done a lot of big deals. I've done deals on the East Coast, West Coast, Texas, Vegas, Arizona, Pennsylvania, you name it. We've done business there. So, at the end of the day, I've really taken a liking to this, actually a real passion to this business, as I've grown and as I've grown a small team and as we've learned over the years, like how to do deals better. I've also bought rental properties and whatnot. So I've been a full-time real estate entrepreneur really since I was in college, and this is the only thing I've done. And quite frankly, Tyson, I really love this business and I'm passionate about it and put out content about it now. And I got started though with no money, right? I had no money, $2,000, right? Which is really nothing. And I had to turn that into something by persistence and being resourceful. And then after doing some deals and, saving some money up, investing it back into marketing and learning systems and sales process and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a heck of a journey so far. And I've loved every minute of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, man. You had mentioned something about passion regarding real estate.
Yeah.
I think, after all these years, how are you still able to maintain that passion for this particular business?
I really like how you asked that question, because a lot of people, they get started in the business and their main objective is to not have to worry about money, right? Like whether you have a lot of money saved or you got assets or whatever. I think you should do both. But I found out, Tyson, I'll tell you a quick story. I mean, when I was younger, like in my high school, early college years, I was working for a living, right? Well, not for a living. I was living with my parents, but like I was, a lifeguard. I was putting floors inside of grocery stores, like as like a manual laborer. I was cutting grass. Like I was working like hard for that money, and my income was directly tied to my physical presence at a job. And I just didn't like that. And I didn't like that. I was like, there's got to be a better way to make money. And this is before I knew what books were really. I was kind of the guy in high school to be like, oh, a book, I don't want to read that. And, I started doing this business. And after some time, I was like, man, I just got paid for bringing value to the market. It had nothing to do with my time. Obviously, I had to put some effort into it, but my financial reward was not tied to me being somewhere. And, in the beginning, I was not doing any deals. Like I wasn't making money and I was working and I enjoyed the activities. So once I started making money from it, I was like, wow, like this is crazy. I can make a lot of money and I'm already doing something that I like, right? Like I'm marketing, I'm talking to people, I'm being a problem solver. So like my relationship with money completely changed once I started like earning income as an entrepreneur. And I realized that the more that I get better at this craft, the more money I'm going to make. And comparing that to like being a lifeguard at a pool, watching a bunch of squirrely kids run around, like I just was like, that sucked, and this is way better. And I feel like, like Ed Milet talks about this a lot. Like the more you grow as a person, the more your income develops and the more money you make. So I realized like the more I can be better as a human being, the more income I'm going to make. And my income in this business is in direct proportion to the skills I have and the value I bring my team and the value we ultimately bring to the marketplace. And to me, it's really about growing as a person. And when you do that, it will reflect upon the world and you'll make more money, which is a little kind of woo woo, but that's my answer.
That's awesome, man. We hear it a lot regarding our personal development process and how we grow as individuals
Yeah,
is runs parallel. If we're disorganized in our personal life, how do we expect to be organized in our business life? If we don't track money in our personal life, how are we supposed to track money in our business life? So,
yeah,
yeah, great point, man. Yeah, so when it comes to direct mail, I know you're the king of direct mail, man. Your margins are super amazing. Your callbacks are great. Let's dive in regards of if somebody's doing direct mail currently, what are some key components for those individuals to remember if they just started doing direct mail
yeah.
to stick in it?
For sure. So I love mail because it's relatively scalable and systematic. So the first thing is you got to understand your market and you got to understand the expectations going into a campaign. So I'll give you an example. If you're in Las Vegas, right, you're going to have to mail more people and spend more money. Obviously, your margins should be bigger. But if you're in a really saturated market or just an expensive market like New York, you got to go into campaigns with the right expectations. So what I mean by that is like if the average cost per deal is like $5,000 or $6,000, and you only have a budget of $1,000, I mean, you should realistically expect it to take at bare bones minimum 5 months to be profitable, right? If it's probably going to be longer than that. But I see a lot of people they want to do direct mail on a shoestring budget, and they think they're going to spend $1,000 and send out 1,000 postcards and get a house, and it's just not reality in any market that I operate in. And my markets are relatively difficult, so you got to go in with the right expectations. You have to have a budget that's sustainable, right? If you can't mail the same list 5 or 6 times, you're in trouble because it's all about timing. And so the real point I'm trying to get is you have to go in there with your eyes open and you need to have a reasonable budget. And that budget has to be consistent for at least 6 months, right? So if you don't have the money for direct mail, I would invest in a different marketing channel to save up some capital, whether that's bandit signs or text messaging or cold calling. Even though those leads aren't going to be as good, you're going to be able to take whatever budget you have if it's not enough for mail and have that last to then get some deals to then hopefully save that money to then invest in a direct mail campaign properly and profitably. So that's the first thing. Second thing is you got to have a list that is a higher than you have to have a list that's basically tipping the odds in your favor. And really, there's no secret lists out there. I've found, at least in our business, we mail a lot of absentee owners that have owned their property for a long time. So the reason we like that list is because number one, generally they're not living there. And number two, if they've owned it for time, number one, it probably has deferred maintenance. And number two, there's probably a reasonable amount of equity in that property. So we know if they call and they have a problem to solve, it's going to need some work, which is what we do for a living. And number two, there's equity in that property, right? And if there's no equity, we might be able to short sale it, which is a whole other topic. But we're getting decent prospects to call us. Like let's say you just pulled a list of people who bought their house 6 months ago and you sent them a postcard, number one, their properties are probably in decent shape because they just bought them. And number two, there's probably not a lot of equity because they most likely got a mortgage to buy it. So you got to make sure you're mailing I'm saying a reasonable list, doesn't need to be a home run list. And then number three, you really don't need to make the marketing message, like the postcard or the letter, something crazy, right? I've done test campaigns where I've lost a bunch of money, like trying to write a Dan Kennedy sales letter on a postcard, and no one called me because, people didn't understand what I was trying to do. So I like to honestly use the vanity postcards on a lot of these vendors' websites because the reason they're on those websites is because they work. And at the end of the day, if you're mailing a decent list and you have a decent budget, as long as the message is straightforward, like, hey, call your house, or call my card if you want to sell your house. You just want to get the calls coming in the door. And then from there, it's a sales process that will get them to convert.
I love that, man. Yeah, just to recap, one of the major components that you had said was, you don't use anything like incredibly fancy when it comes to postcards.
No.
You use a standard postcard basic message. And you had said that, because it's on their particular side, that's probably why it works most of the time. Another component that I heard through your message was consistency. So, consistency, like always consistently mailing that same particular list, right?
Yes.
And then budget along with expectations. So understanding your budget to be able to withstand your expectations for anywhere from 5 to 6 months before you get your first deal, right?
Exactly. So to kind of tie that home, let's just say I was in Vegas for some reason. We've actually did a deal in Vegas, which is ironic. That was a Google lead, but let's say you're in Las Vegas. And I don't know Vegas that well, but I would assume in Vegas, you're probably going to need to send a bare bone minimum of 15,000 postcards to get somewhat of a response. It's probably not going to be great, but if you're in Vegas and you can't send at least 15,000 postcards minimum per drop, you're probably looking at, a year to get a deal. But if you're sending 15,000 postcards, I would say in, probably 90 to 120 days, you should get some traction, right? So on the flip side, pun intended, let's say you're in like Tyler, Texas. I'm just pulling that city out of my ass. That's not even close to Vegas. This freaking contractor keeps calling me. I'm not taking this call, this jerky. It's like, bro, I'm on a podcast, don't you know? Anyway, if you're in like Tyler, Texas, I'm assuming it's not as competitive as Vegas. So let's say you send 7,000 postcards. That's probably going to get you a deal over 3 to 4 to 5 months. So you got to know your area and you got to understand in Tyler, Texas, it's probably going to be easier to buy and harder to sell versus in Vegas, it's going to be harder to buy, maybe not now, and then a little bit easier to sell. So it's really about the market you want to do deals in and realistic expectations. But I mean, Tyson, I remember when I first got into direct mail, even a little bit, I mean, I was sending like 600 letters out and we were getting like crazy response rates. And those days are well over. Maybe they'll be back, but I don't think they'll be back anytime soon. It's crazy.
Yeah, those days are, just over the transition. Now, how do you fare that direct mail is, I feel personally that direct mail and these type of marketing channels are coming back because, the cold calling, the text message, that was kind of the heydays of that, I think are behind us in some capacity, and individuals like yourself who always stuck to direct mail have performance indicators over the course of years that say like, yo, this campaign works. This is the percentage that we get out of our campaign. This is our average deal size. And you have tracked these metrics over the course of years, right?
Yes. So I like how you brought that up. And that's another reason I like mail is because it is tough and it's expensive, but it is relatively predictable over time. So that if you send 20,000 postcards out and you get a 0.5% response rate, that's going to be 50 calls. Out of those 50 calls, you'll probably get like 20 leads, like actual leads, not garbage, take me off your list kind of things. So then if you get 20 leads and you mail 3 times, that's 60 leads. If you have a half brain, you should be able to get at least 2 houses from that, right? Because that's not unreasonable. That's like, bare bones minimum. So, I mean, it's predictable in the sense that you're going to get calls and you're going to get leads versus like texting or calling, which we still make money on, but that can get shut down at any time. There's a lot of people doing that. There's no barrier to entry really. You can buy a list for nothing and skip trace it for 10 cents a record, put it in launch control for $1,000 a month, right? So there's more people doing that. And I just feel like with texting and calling, even though you can get deals, like ironically, we closed a deal yesterday from texting, but like you got to talk to more people. The leads are going to be more unqualified. So I personally would rather spend a little bit more money on the actual lead and get a better lead versus getting like all these quote unquote $10 leads and have my team talk to 100 people to buy a house.
What a great point, man, especially for people that have, the budget to do direct mail.
Yeah.
Um, this is a different show, but, there's a difference between like data and leads, in my opinion, like just raw data, wishy-washy people versus an actual lead. You can get the lead volume from direct mail, at least in my experience, is a little bit lower, but the quality is higher.
Yes.
So versus texting and calling, where you're going to be banging out 100, 200 calls a day, maybe get
a lead
a day.
So that's another thing I like about mail is like, if you really think about the psychology of it, yes, you're going to get some people who are like, I got your postcard, what's your offer? But the people who actually are serious, if we're talking like a 0.5% response rate, I mean, practically everyone's throwing it out. So if you're getting the handful of people to call you, generally after you sift out the tire kickers, these people have a property for sale and they generally know you're not going to offer them top dollar. I mean, for the most part. So we've found that if you send enough mail, you're going to get really hot leads. And like we just, this hasn't closed yet, but we got this piece of actually a land deal down in near New York City in the Westchester County. If that thing shakes out, we'll make 65 racks on that thing on a direct mail lead. And the guy's like a sophisticated rich guy. Like, so, but he called knowing that, he's probably going to get a little bit less than market. And this is a land deal, so it's a little bit different. But, you don't need that many people to chat to on mail in order to strike a deal. And a lot of the people, like we get a lot of leads when they inherited the property. Like we inherited this property. It needs work. We got your postcard at a good time. Let's talk about you buying the house. Versus, we get deals from texting, but a lot of those leads there's such a long follow-up process. Like I got your text and then we're texting them for 6 months and then they might want to sell and then they might not want to sell. So I would rather have my team and myself, because I'm very involved in the business, speak to better people, at least up front, versus having to shuffle through a bunch of garbage to then maybe buy a house in 6 months.
I love that, man. Speak to better people. Like that's something that just stood out to me,
Yeah.
I think so often, we can get caught up with just talking to people that may be something, but it never ends up being anything. And it's a 12-month follow-up process and the sales cycle is just extremely long, where, either like a PPC, a mail campaign, these people have actively put in effort to reach out to you. Now, when these people reach out to you, how have you increased your sales conversion process once they call in? And then what does that process look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we screen really heavily, maybe heavily than most, but we really believe in our company that if we can't solve a problem for that customer, whether that's a wholesale cash offer or it's a novation or something like that, maybe seller financing. We don't do a lot of that, but basically we heavily screen them and we try to disqualify them, not in a jerky way, but in a way where it's like they understand exactly what we can do for them. And then they decide if they think that this could be of good benefit to them or not. So what we'll do is we'll ask them a series of questions. How long have you been thinking about selling? What's the condition of the property like? Have you thought about listing it? Right? That's a big deal killer in my market because people are super sophisticated. And about 95% of people are going to list their house on the MLS, which is normal. And when we ask them those types of questions and we kind of hear their story and we find out the house needs work or the building needs work, whatever we're buying, and we find out they don't want to list it for some reason, like generally that means that there's some sort of a problem we might be able to solve. And then at that point, we really drill deep on, okay, so what's really going on? What's it really going to take for you to move? How can we truly solve a problem unlike anyone else, right? How can we stand out amongst the competition that's here to hopefully be there to solve your problem? And that's generally going to mean we're going to buy their house for less than the other people, because in order for them to have certainty and convenience, we need to have the property make sense for them and make sense for us. And notice that I said it's got to make sense for them first. A lot of investors, they just talk about, I buy for cash, I close fast, I call it the cash hammer. They hit them over the head. Sell me your house, sell me your house, sell me your house. We obviously need to get it at a good number, because in order for us to do what we say we're going to do, it's got to work for them or else they're not signing, but it's got to work for us. We're not going to do a deal to make a mouse wholesale fee. We're going to do a deal that's going to make a lot of money. And we disclose to the sellers that we're making a big profit on the house. Like we don't hide that, especially if we're wholesaling. If we're wholesaling a house, it's a little bit of a side note, and we're only going to wholesale it. Like generally, if it's a home run deal, I'll close it no matter what. But if it's a deal that we're only going to assign, we will literally tell the seller we're wholesaling their house. And 9 out of 10 people, Tyson, will be like, that's fine. We just want our problem solved. And we tell them all the risks. Hey, if we can't find an end buyer, we're bailing. So we set the stage, as John Martinez would say, to have open and honest communication and full transparency on both sides. So sellers appreciate what you're trying to do. I see a lot of investors, and oh my God, I can't tell you how many freaking calls I get. This idiot wholesaler calling me on my Google ad that I'm paying for, trying to wholesale me a house that makes no sense. And then they lie to the seller, and then they have to cancel. And I'm like, dude, you're just buying this for too much money. So we probably overly share, I mean, what we're doing, but we found that brings a lot of trust and credibility, and it helps us get deals over the competition in our market.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a lesson, because that's like overextending the customer service aspect, I think, which is oftentimes overlooked.
It's so overlooked in our business. Our business, to be honest, has a horrible reputation. Wholesaling has a just garbage reputation because there's a lot of Neanderthals running around making bad offers who aren't trained, and they're jacking sellers up, and people are getting pissed. So we just figured if we want to stay ahead of the curve here, we got to be open and honest about what the truth is. And if we want this wholesaling business to last, like just the industry, there's got to be transparency, and there's got to be a mutual consent of what is to happen. Because I see so much garbage going on where people are getting bad deals. I'm sure this happens in Vegas, and the sellers get pissed, and then they go on the BBB, and then someone looks, So we just try to stay a step ahead of that. I mean, we're not perfect, don't get me wrong, but I think we're better than most at really telling the customer what the truth is. And like I said, if it's a banging deal and I'm closing it no matter what, we won't tell them we're wholesaling it because it's not going to matter at the end of the day. Right. But like the deal we did, like if that buyer bailed, like you and I would have just closed it cash and we would have put it back on the market. But at the end of the day, like that was plan B. We knew that. So it wasn't a big deal. But I just see so many people honestly overpaying for properties. They can't deliver on what they said they were going to do because no one wants it. And I mean, if you're just open with the seller from day one and they can feel that, whether that's through the phone or in person, it's going to win you a lot of deals over other people. And it's like shocking.
Yeah. I think that also, has removed your stickiness in like hard situations. If you overcommit to a purchase price of, X amount of dollars, and then you realize, oh man, I can't sell this thing. But like where it sounds to me as if you guys really juice some of these deals to get some of the highest spreads possible. Is that right?
Yeah. So here's a good story. I'm going to use a story to make that point.
Yeah.
So this happened 2 weeks ago. We had a SEO lead. So it was a Google search engine lead. Came in super hot, good price, went on the appointment. Well, Brett went on the appointment. This is in Delaware, and couldn't get the house on the first appointment. We didn't make him an offer because there was competition as always. And then we made him a phone offer, and they were kind of resisting. And Brett and I listened to the call, and I coached him through it a little bit. And I'm like, listen, man, you did like 95% of the things right here. The 5% that you could have done better. If you go, I said, here's the deal. If you go back to this house and just look for an excuse to come back inside, say you forgot to look at the attic or something, on your way out the door, just say, hey, by the way, I know we were supposed to talk Thursday, but like, hey, I'm already here. Let's see if we can work a deal out. So he goes back inside the house, gets the contract, and we negotiated that deal where the sellers really wanted 140, and 140 would have worked for us, but we really wanted to get it cheaper so we can guarantee them certainty and 100% confidence we're going to close, right? Because at 140, it was like, I don't know. At 120, it was like no, like I would say, like lights out deal. So Brett negotiated that deal hard, and he got the seller to sell at 120. We wholesaled it for a nice profit, but instead of kind of like compromising and agreeing to 140 and having us be a little like about it, we got out of our comfort zone and we negotiated hard, and we negotiated 20 grand, and we needed that 20 grand to have that certainty. And we could have compromised at the 140 and still made money, but we made a lot more money, and we ultimately provided the seller more value, because even if that deal blows up, it's in escrow right now, I'll close it cash, with my own money, no problem, because we got it at the right number. So it's like insurance. Here's a takeaway for your listeners. If you get a property at the right number, like truthfully at the right number, like a smoking deal, you're giving that seller insurance that you're going to close that property, right? Because you're going to be really excited about that deal, whether you assign it, whether you close it, whether you rehab it, whether you rent it. But if you're buying deals at like marginal numbers, you don't really feel warm and fuzzy inside. You're like, I might make 20 grand if the contractor doesn't go to jail. But I kind of wanted to get this deal for like 20 grand less to ensure the certainty. So when you're getting properties at these margins and you negotiate hard and you don't like compromise, obviously there's a systematic way to do it. You're really providing more value to that seller because it's incentivizing for you to buy it because of the profitability on the back end. Because a lot of the times, Tyson, sellers are selling at a discount and they know they can get more if they list it or maybe sell to some schmuck. But some schmuck might not be able to deliver the certainty we can deliver. Or the realtor, certainly can get them more money, but there's buyers agents and there's inspections and termite damage and all that stuff. And then there's a lot of uncertainty with that.
Man, there were some gems in there, and thank you for sharing, man. Like one of the big takeaways that I received from you right now was excited about the deal.
Yes.
I think and to stay continuously excited about deals. If we're just buying deals just to buy deals, and we've gotten in a space.
I've been there too, man. I still make this mistake to this day, bro. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no, and I'm just like, there are some deals that I don't necessarily get excited about, but I know it's going to be, it's going to be profitable. But to be like truly excited about a deal, when you said that, it kind of reminded me about like my first 5 or 10 deals. I was excited about all of them. Did I make money on all of them? Like, yeah, not crazy. Like the first 5 were great, but then after that, I'm like, oh man, and then I got in a rhythm of being more excited about deals. And when you said that, it just reminded me to be more excited about deals. And then another takeaway is it sounds like, because I know that you work with a smaller niche team. So what that allows you to do is have freedom from the business.
Yes.
Because you're really dissecting some of these leads. So it sounds to me as if there's not so much pressure on the day-to-day to perform at a high level versus on like a quarterly or monthly basis.
Yeah. You made a great point. And that's why I'm a big believer, at least in this business, of having a small, really efficient team, almost like the Navy SEALs instead of the Army Reserves. Not knocking the Army Reserves at all. I'm just saying, like, I'd rather have a team, and I stole this from my friend who's a leadership guru, but I'd rather have like 3 Navy SEALs on my team than like 10 people in the Army Reserves, because I know those Navy SEALs are all, number one, making a lot of money, and number two, they're highly skilled and they know exactly what their role is, versus like, having like 3 mediocre salespeople and like, 3 mediocre lead managers. Like, I've just found with a smaller team, ultimately you have relatively less overhead. You still have overhead, obviously, but you can have your team make a lot more money individually. And it's almost like they're co-owners of the company and they like own their role. And I honestly have found it to be a lot more fun because I'm personally involved in this business. I still sit in a few seats, right? I still oversee the business. I like the business. So for me, it's like not an issue. But I have some friends, and we have some mutual friends who have these big behemoth businesses. God bless them. Like, there's definitely stuff I can learn from that. But I just know that's really not what I want. Not because it's wrong, but I just don't want to be like a glorified manager. I'd rather be in the trenches. Yes, do I have to work a little bit more? Probably. But my team can make more money. We're a lot more close knit, and truthfully, it's really fun. Like Gary Keller has this thing. He says, "I do it in the beginning, we do it in the middle, they do it at the end, and then like the ultimate goal is to have like a quote unquote 7th level business that runs without you." Certainly not there yet for me. So I'm in the we do it phase, and I really enjoy that phase, Tyson. I really get a lot of fulfillment out of it, seeing my team make more money than they've ever made, sending them crazy amounts of money that I'm like, holy crap, like this is wild. And seeing them win and seeing them really own their roles, right? And I'll be honest with you, Brett is probably better than me at buying houses at this point because he's in the game. Anna is better than me at all the other stuff that I don't do because that's their role and they own that. And then it's my job as a leader to set the pace, lead by example, communicate effectively, and steer the ship, right? And make decisions that are high level, which is not easy, right? Like investing in data, investing in all these things and funding deals and, having to put skin in the game. Like those are things that I have no problem doing and then my team appreciates that because they know I have their backs and I'm looking out for them.
I love that, man. So tell me a little bit, if you're open to dissecting a little bit of the roles in the company, because we've really hashed in about, working smarter, not harder. how your direct mail is kind of working and the expectations of that, and then the importance of the sales conversion process. Are you open to sharing your roles and
Yeah.
responsibilities in the company?
Yeah. So what I do is I oversee everything. I'm like the president or whatever the hell you want to call it. So I oversee all departments. I oversee the acquisitions. I oversee the whole business, number one. So I'm making all the high level decisions, purchasing decisions, marketing decisions, all that stuff. So that's first thing. Second thing is I sit in the disposition seat. So if we're wholesaling a house, it's from me, not from a disposition. So that's the second thing I do. The third thing is I oversee all the marketing, right? So I don't do all the marketing, but I oversee all the marketing. I look at the campaigns. What are we doing? What's profitable? How are we executing it? My assistant helps me with some of the mailers we do. And then I have a Google Ads manager who's like a contractor. And and then my assistant does the text messaging and whatnot. And then I also like deal with the relationships, like other investors bringing us deals, etc. So that's like my core role is the dispositions overseeing the marketing. I have an assistant who does some of the other marketing. So the texting, she does some direct mail, she does some transaction coordination work. She kind of like oversees a lot of the mechanics of it. And then on the buying side, on the acquisition side, Brett owns that role. So he's dealing with 90% of the sellers. He's making 90% of the offers. He's following up with 90% of the people. And his main objective is to just bring deals through the door. When he brings deals through the door, then it comes to me and I obviously, take it from there. So, because at the end of the day in this business, like you have acquisitions, which is a huge activity and a huge daily slew of activities, which get you your inventory. And then you have like your dispositions, which is whether you're wholesaling, whether you're renting, whether you're rehabbing. And then you have the operations, which is how does the business run? What's the property management look like? What's the retail fix and flips look like? What's the transaction coordination look like? So then there's like the operations department. So I sit mostly in the operations and the disposition seat, and then I oversee the whole business. But it's nice because like I used to take all the seller calls and I would be screening the leads and I would be making the offers and I'd be following up. And that takes a lot of time and that's super important. But once I brought Brett on, he took that role on. So now I don't have to deal with that as much. And I can focus on high level stuff, selling properties, raising money, etc., building buyers. So that's kind of my business in a nutshell. Like I only have 2 employees and I really like it that way. I had 2 VAs I just got rid of. They weren't producing anything. My fault, right, as a leader. But that's what we look like. That's what we look like right now. And I feel like a lot of investors overhire and they hire 2 salespeople when they really need 1 really good salesperson who's going to make a lot more money individually than 2 would make splitting the deals. They don't need, 2 transaction coordinators. They need 1 really good transaction coordinator who can deal with all the work. They might need 1 dispositions person. So I'd rather have a lean, mean team. And I'll tell you what, I know a handful of guys who net 7 figures and their little dirty secret is that they have like 2 or 3 employees
Yeah.
or they're a one-man show. And it's ironic how that's the case. So I try to just follow their footsteps. I'm certainly not perfect, but I really like our team right now. And I like the camaraderie we have and having like that small intimate group versus like a big organization.
I love that. And is Brett, let me regress a little bit. If somebody's marketing outside of their backyard, Vegas or wherever they're staying,
Yeah.
How important is it to have somebody boots on the ground to help convert some of those contracts?
Yeah. So we buy about 90% of our deals over the phone, even though Brett is local in one of our areas. We bring him on, like if he needs to go on a local appointment or something like in Delaware, like he'll go there, like that deal I told you about, like that definitely helped by him being there. So I would say it's definitely helpful if they're local, but if you want to do business virtually and you have someone who's really good on the phone, you can make up for maybe the lack of physical presence on the appointment to having like maybe a good boots on the ground realtor or a good home inspector or someone to take pictures. At the end of the day, listen, if you're belly to belly, it's going to be easier to convert, but you got to drive on appointments. You got to go all over town. You got to sit in traffic. You got to get ghosted. I've just found we'd rather make more offers over the phone and maybe have a lower conversion rate, but then we're ultimately going to get more deals net at the end of the day because we're swinging the bat more. So listen, it's helpful that he's in Delaware, and I'm grateful for that. But if he was living in Kansas, I mean, we'd still find a way to make money. We'd probably be buying in Kansas too. But I would say, it's if you can have someone local in one of your areas, great, but it's not critical.
Excellent, man. Excellent, man. So small team, tight knit. know your roles. This is great, man.
Don't be afraid to jump in, man. I see a lot of business owners like doing this, like, I don't want to be in my business. I want it to run by myself. I listened to a really good book called The Road Less Stupid. And
I actually screenshotted that book because
yeah, bro. Yeah. Super good book.
Yeah, I got it right here. Yeah.
And he was like, if you're like people talk about passive income, it's like passive income is bullshit. I have rentals, they make money. They're not passive. I've lent money to people sometimes. That's not passive. Like,
and it's not even that much money. Like, I'm just going to be on a rental property, it's not that much money for the amount of effort and time that is required to earn that money. Great. 100%. It's money. It's paying down. I'm getting equity. I'm using it as a bank to pull other stuff. But at the end of the day, it's not that much money.
Exactly. So I see this passive income thing get thrown around all the time, and I kind of shake my head at it. Like, I have no problem at this point being relatively active in my business within reason. Like, I'm not like talking to every seller anymore, but like, I'm not afraid to jump into the fire and solve a problem when needed. Like, we had a little bit of a crisis on a deal a couple weeks ago. I jumped right in there. Right. And the team saw that and they're like, oh, like, he's not jacking around. Like, I got their back. So my takeaway is like, listen, you obviously want to systematize your business as best as you can, but that does not mean you're going to not be no longer required in your business. Like, that is kind of bullshit, to be honest with you. I mean, you can do it, but at the end of the day, like, you're still going to, like, if you care about the business and you want it to be as successful as possible, you're going to need to be reasonably active, whether that's just making decisions and looking at numbers, but you're not just going to be able to like go to Bali for 3 months and like not tune into your computer. Like, I just don't see that being reality just by being a guy in the business. It's not like, maybe 1 out of 10 guys can do that or girls can do that, but that's not something I'm really interested in. Because it kind of goes back to the point I made earlier in the show. I like the business. It's fun. This does not work for me. This is fun. Like, I'm making deals and hitting my goals and my team's hitting their goals. So like, I think it's fun and I have no problem being involved with a team versus like, trying to like automate my business and go to Bali for 3 months. Like, I'd lose my mind if I did that. I'd be like sitting on the beach, like trying to like start up another business or something,
How much time do you actually spend in the business per day, would you say?
I work like actual work, probably like 5 or 6 hours a day, like of actual work, not like dilly dallying, like, doing something that's critical. But to me, it's like, what else am I going to do all day?
Right.
Sit on my ass.
Right. And that's great. 5 hours. I think that's
not bad.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. But that's awesome. Like the critical stuff. Like, I'll be like on call if someone needs me, but like me actually like sending an email that's meaningful or underwriting a deal that's meaningful, like I would say probably like 5 hours, isn't bad.
Awesome, man. Well, cool, man. Greg, I really appreciate you hopping on, man. Is there any place, like if anybody's interested in, learning more about you and learning more about direct mail, is there any place that they can go to connect with you specifically?
Yeah, I would say the best way they can connect with me, there's 2 ways. You can go to my Instagram page. I put out a lot of content. That's Grego_37. That's a great way to connect with me. And then there's like links in there if people want to like get on my email list. Or they could just email me personally, greg@velocityhousespires.com. And if you email me and, I'll get back to you. I'm not going to like ghost you. So I'm pretty active, pretty easy to get in touch with. I don't like hide under a cave like some people. Like, if you want to reach out to me, I'll get back to you. And I love helping people. So email me, greg@velocityhousespires.com, or follow me on IG, Grego37, Grego_37. And those are the best 2 ways to get in touch with me.
Awesome, man. I'll place those links and your bio down below in the description below. Greg, man, I truly, truly appreciate you hopping on, dropping gems regarding direct marketing, increasing the sales process, the way that your team works, man. I really, really appreciate it. You're an inspiration to me because you alleviate a lot of the fluff and then only focus on things that are really high impact with low lift. Brother,
Thank you.
I appreciate
that, man.
Thanks, Greg. Let's roll the outro.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I have tremendous gratitude for our guests and you listening now for joining our mission of democratizing real estate education around the world. If you want to learn more from our experts, our mission, and get involved, then please visit realestateexperts.org to get started. Who knows? You might even be a guest on a future episode.
If you like this video and you enjoy this type of content, go ahead and click right here to see more.